Hi, this is the voice of Heidie Calero with another fascinating economic capsule regarding the Puerto Rico economy. Today we have entitled our economic capsule Headwinds in Labor Laws. Why? Because this past week it was the cover of the Wall Street Journal regarding some of the laws or regulations that might be changing regarding self-employed versus considering them even partial employees. And what is the impact of that? Well, since Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, since COVID-19, there's been a shift, a fundamental structural change in the labor market. And now many of these people who were before working as an employee, they found out that they were laid off and that they relied only on the incentives and all the relief that was given to us by the COVID funds from the federal government. Well, they might have decided all that time that they were closed in their homes that maybe there might be another option, and they started doing research in the internet. So many of them decided, hey, I'm going to become a self-employee. And what I'm showing you in this first graph is statistics from the Puerto Rico Department of Labor. The columns are the number of self-employees since 2000 through August of 2022. And the red line that you see there is the percentage of those self-employed as a percentage of the labor force, which consists of those who are employed as well as those who are unemployed. You divide that by that labor force, and that is 16% as of August 2022, with more than 192,000. In fact, it's going to be 194,000 self-employees. The average for 2022 is about 192,000. So notice how that line, that red line, has been increasing as a percentage of the labor force, and indeed the columns have increased. They increased more since the start of the recession back in 2007. Then they sort of dwindled down, stabilized, but then after 2017 they started increasing, and after COVID even more so. Let's look at the annual growth, compare the labor force with the self-employees. This is the next graph I'm depicting for you here. And again, we divided this in three chunks, three periods, from 2000 through 2007, just before the recession hit Puerto Rico, which is no longer a recession, it's a depression. The columns are the growth, annual growth in the self-employees, and the orange column is the growth, the annual growth of the labor force in these three periods. So the period 2000 through 2007, the self-employees grew 2.6%, almost twice as the labor force, which grew only 1.2% annually. Let's go forward to 2008, 2017, plain recession in Puerto Rico, and just before Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, and labor force declined by 2.3% annual. Yet, even though the self-employees also declined, they declined less at a lower pace of negative 1.6%. But notice the third chunk, the third period, 2018 through 2022, these self-employees grew annually 4%, more so exceeding the rate of growth of labor force. And this is important, and it is also part of other economic capsules which we have talked about regarding the labor force, because that's related also to demographic changes. There's not enough of this birth rate compared with the death rate, and if that labor force doesn't grow, we will have problems in terms of productive capacity, as it's happening in Puerto Rico, as it's happening in other parts of the world where societies have become old as we speak. The next graph depicts where are they working, these self-employees, and the Economic Development Bank in Puerto Rico provides some of those statistics per economic activity sector according to their financing request. And the segment in blue, out of those 194,231 employees, self-employees, 57% were working in the service sector. Those are in beauty parlors, in self-employment, those who are personal trainers, those who are providing all kinds of services. And they are also part of that underground economy, which is huge. In trade, it's only 17%. In construction, it's about 15%. And then in other sectors, 11%. So the big chunk is in services. And then all these headwinds that are talking about in labor laws, which might change this, what can they impact in terms of employers and employees and those self-employees? And this is the table which we have done on a very basic comparative cost analysis. The first column describes it's going to be based on this exercise based on 20 hours weekly, based on a minimum wage of $8.50. What is their compensation? What is their responsibilities towards the payment of Social Security and Medicare? What is it then, the total that they contribute in terms of the economy? And we compare that with employers. So let's see, self-employment, it seems that for those 194,231 self-employees, if we multiply them by 20 hours weekly times 52 weeks times $8.50, it's going to be 19,270. Those self-employees have a responsibility towards Social Security and Medicare. They have to pay 12.4%. And that implies that come April 15, they have to pay $4,094,389 to IRS. That implies that they are contributing almost $37,113,659. Well, the employer, if the employer is paying these professional services to these self-employees, of course they are paying the $33 million that we talked about in the first column of self-employees. But notice, the employer doesn't have the responsibility of paying Social Security or Medicare. That relies strictly on the shoulders of the self-employees, and if they do it. Of course, if they don't, they're going to feel the pinch when they are upon retirement age, and then they find that they have no Social Security pensions. Well, the employer then is paying, contributing to the economy, $33,019,270. So compare that with the 37 that we set for the self-employees. Now let's convert those self-employees into partial employees. Those are working part-time, but they are partial time employees. This time, same scenario, $850, 20 hours weekly. Well, but this time, from that same compensation, their responsibility towards Social Security and Medicare is 6.2%. Instead of paying $4 million, they would be paying $2 million to IRS. And their contribution to the economy like $35,066,465. Compare that with what the employer now has to pay. Same compensation, because it's 20 hours weekly, over 52 weeks for all these self-employees. And now the employer has to contribute 6.2%, half of that Social Security and Medicare responsibility. And they now have to pay shoulder $2,047,195. Well, that means it's on the burden of these employers to pay more. Their compensation, their payroll just increased, all their cost of doing business. So it's going to really imply that maybe instead of hiring 2 self-employees, I may hire 1 partial employee, and that implies that employment may not be as large as before. Plus, the self-employees lose flexibility. They want this freedom that they have not had since being self-employees as compared to a partial employee. So many ramifications. This has not yet, there's no final decision, but just be clear that these are headwinds in labor laws in terms of a depression, in terms of this inflation, in terms of all these high labor costs in Puerto Rico as well as in the States. If you liked our economic capsule, don't forget to give us a like in YouTube, subscribe to the Voice of Heidie Calero, and don't forget that this is a service of Puerto Rico Economic Pulse. If you liked us, give us a like, and don't forget that the economy is all of us. Thank you.